where are things going to go for Daniel Cormier? If you were to take Daniel Cormier at his word, and like anything in life, that's what we have to do. We have to operate on the information we're given. Daniel Cormier is pretty dead set, for whatever reason, that he's going to do 2 more fights. I just don't believe him. I don't believe him because, and I'll tell you why, I don't think he's going to count the Derrick Lewis fight. When Daniel said he had 2 fights left, one of them was to include Brock Lesnar, and then one of them was going to be the swan song with whoever that was going to be. Was it going to be a rematch with Stipe? Was it going to be against whoever the number 1 contender is at that time? Is it going to be against Jon Jones? I don't know. And Daniel didn't say. He just said, I'm going to do 2 more fights. Brock's going to be one of them. Let the UFC figure out who the other one is. Thanks for everything and goodbye. I just don't know if I buy that because there are mega fights out there for him right now. Not all of his fights have been mega fights. As much as you may have enjoyed the Rumble Johnson fight, and it was a perfectly fine fight, but it wasn't a mega fight. As much as you may have enjoyed the Stipe fight, and what we thought was going to be a mega fight, but that's only something you know when you Monday morning quarterback it after the fact. It turned out not to be a mega fight for whatever reason. I think we can all agree that the Brock fight is going to be a big fight. And we may not think it's going to be an ultra-competitive fight or a hard fight for Daniel. That's a separate conversation. I'm talking about a big fight. I'm talking about eyeballs. I'm talking about a guy that wants to be able to move on from the sport, to set up his feet. Yeah, I'm talking about money. Sure I am. But with that said, we know for sure, without any bit of a hint or a gamble, that Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier does huge business. We know that because it's done huge business twice, and those guys got a legitimate beef. And if you put it at heavyweight, you add that added dimension of intrigue to what could happen here. Why Daniel is saying that I have put Jon out of my sights, while he is saying that, and I think that he means that to a degree, I have to say to you guys, and I think you would agree with me, those are the 2 big fights. And for him to leave the sport without grabbing the 2 big fights, while they're here, don't forget this, he fought Gustafsson. Look how hard that fight was. That wasn't a great night of business. He's had other fights. They're hard. He trains. He weighs in. He goes through the process. He goes out there, but they're not huge fights. I just don't think, and all I can do is put myself in his shoes. What would I do if I was in his position? Well, if I did all this heavy lifting and I had 2 mega fights out there that I could get back-to-back in the form of Brock Lesnar and Jon Jones, I'm going to go do the mega fights. And I think that's what he'll do. I don't think he will count Derrick Lewis. And I'll tell you this, too, on the Daniel front, and I don't know if he would agree with me on this or that if he's even aware of this, but there is certainly a piece of him, okay? I share this with you as an athlete. But there is certainly a piece of him that would very much want to get the win back and go out on top over Jon Jones. Obviously, I'm stating the obvious for you. But the other side of that coin that may not be so obvious is there is a piece of an athlete, no matter how much of a competitor he is, and no matter how much, if he's even recognized it himself, does have a thought somewhere in his head. Do I want to run the risk of going 0-3 against a guy? And so you have this struggle, this internal struggle, whether you're conscious of it or not, fight or flight, that can help to conduct and influence some of those decisions. Where I am going with that theory, if I am correct and there is a piece of data that's going, you know what, why go out there and do it? He screwed up and he's got the asterisks and I've moved on. I'm in a different division. I'm champion of the world. He could change his mind after seeing Jon in a performance. For Jon Jones to get past Alexander Gustafsson is going to be a very tall order. The Jon Jones that we're going to see against Alexander Gustafsson has a question mark about it. For the same reason that Barry Bonds quit hitting those home runs. I have seen a clean Jon Jones. He is one scary son of a bitch. The guy is very, very good. And that was the Jon that fought OSP. But why I offer that to you is it was a reduced Jon Jones. As good as he was, and leaving there with a championship and winning all 5 rounds and winning the striking and the grappling and the everything that he did right, it was still a reduced Jon Jones. So now when you're confronted with that we are going to see a reduced Jon Jones in comparison to the Jon that we saw fight Gustafsson, if that math holds up, and you put that in conjunction with the fact that Jon refused to fight Gustafsson on November 3rd because he was not ready. What else does that tell us? Well, that's a big clue. That tells us he's not training. So you get a guy that's coming off of this suspension, which is going to cause a reduction. You have a guy that's a little bit older, though I don't think he's even far from too old for this sport. Okay, and that's relevant because there is an age range where when you take breaks, it can cost you greatly. But there's also age ranges where you can take a break, your body doesn't know any different. You're just that right age where you don't put on a lot of weight. You don't lose your rhythm. You don't get out of timing. That comes with some youth. And I think he's still in that spot. So I don't think that him being a year older is going to hurt, but I will also concede it's not going to help. And then when you're confronted with the clue that he wasn't training and had to say no to a fight in his home state on top of the bill in MSG when it's a world title, I mean, that's a big piece of evidence that you have to take into consideration. It's still a very special athlete, and that is not my message, but I think the fight gets a little bit more compelling. And I think based on the performance of Jon in that fight may influence Daniel's decision of whether, hey, I'm going to welcome him up to heavyweight and do this thing one more time. And I don't know if Daniel would agree with me. I don't know that he is conscious of that. And I would not blame him if he was not. I'm just sharing with you that at some point, your mind does go to that place. Do I want to go out there and risk going 0-3? Do I want to see this guy fight one more time? And then it is outcome-based too, isn't it? As much as you guys want to see Jones and Cormier, and as much as we think that is the fight to make, if Jones is to come up short at light heavyweight and not beat Gus, Jones's next piece of business will be a trilogy against Gus. Imagine how much you would want to see that if they go out and they have another wonderful fight like the first one was, but the decision goes the other way. Well, now you want to run that one back, and all of a sudden Daniel's left without a dance partner. But that's how quick MMA can work. That's the way it goes. Nothing wrong with it. You just don't know what you know until you know it. There's a lot of unforeseens out there. You never know when a guy's going to fly over a cage and throw a jumping crane kick into the audience, and all of a sudden you want to see a rematch. I mean, you just don't know. You just simply don't know. So Daniel's going to take on Derrick Lewis. And my only opinion of that fight is just to call it early, that one is not going to count in the tally column against Daniel when he says, I'm going to do 2 more fights. I don't think so. I think you're for sure going to get him in this fight. And then I think we start the clock and we see who those 2 next opponents are.